everybody, and welcome into the Casual Sports Podcast. As always, I'm Alec Coburn. That's my ticker was wrong there for a second, but there it is. I'm Alec Coburn, and welcome into the Casual Sports Podcast. As always, here on Wednesday, it's me, Matt Morrison, over in the Ridge. They're without power at the moment, so he might be joining us, might not be joining us. We'll see how that ends up, but as promised, we're going to continue our high school football coverage. For the last 2 days, it's taken us a while to break down the entire slate of games from the past week. We got high school volleyball going on tonight and last night, so we're going to go over some of those scores. And, of course, at the end of the show, we'll run through our college football top 10. I know it's a little bit more for us. We like doing it. Tradition. We had to keep something from the old show. That's what we decided to keep, and that's what we're going to do. Had some snow in the valley overnight. I was watching it fall last night as everyone I know was shrieking that it was snowing. And I was like, oh, yay, snowflakes. I was happy to see it. I know not too many other people are this early in the year. It's going to get back to 70 next week, so don't worry about it staying around too long. It was fun to see you for one night. We're going to get back to some good weather here pretty soon. And week one of the postseason should give us some good weather. This Friday, I think there's going to be a mix, depending on where you are, especially with the winds, how that weather's going to impact your games. But before we get started, once again, I want to say best of luck to all of our teams in soccer and volleyball participating in the OHSAA playoffs. All teams got started up yesterday. It was a good start to the season for all of them, or start to the postseason for most of them, I should say. But best of luck. Hope to see you make that nice run, and we'll have a chance to broadcast it at some point, hopefully. But going into high school football, once again, here kind of real quick before we get back into our normal Wednesday theme of volleyball and soccer, obviously. But Wyndham, this past week, obviously taking a loss to Matthews, 56-20. Kind of a game you expected to go that way. They were on a bit of a losing streak. They beat Harding the week before at home. Then you go up against the Matthews team that has really been dominating their competition as of late. And you kind of just have this feeling, well, Matthews, they're an 8 seed right now. They clinched the playoff spot with that win. You look at Wyndham, they're teetering right now. They're 16th. They win. Potentially they can get in. If they lose, they can also potentially get in this final week. It's a matchup against North Baltimore. So points are going to really give them much. And whether they win or lose, they can get 13, 14, 15, 16, or none of them for this final week. So, no matter where they end up, I think they want to hit that postseason. They want to be in there. Likelihood is, though, with that, you either take on JFK, Louisville, Danville, or St. Paul. You're not winning any of those games. No matter how good you are, you're not going to take one of those because those teams are very talented. Wyndham, it's been a middle of the road season for them. Not bad, not great. They're kind of hoping, hey, let's take this final win this Friday. Let's see if we can make the postseason, and we'll take it from there. In my mindset, that's at least what they're going with. That's what I would go with if I was their coaching staff, because you're not going to make a big postseason run. You're going to give the speeches as though you will. I mean, you're not going to go, hey, we're going to win this, we're going to lose next week. You're obviously not telling your kids that, because that ain't going to do much for not going to do much for their play on the field. But everyone knows, hey, just make the postseason. Let's see if you can finish around 500, and then you go to the postseason. It's 1 week at a time at this point to try and make that playoff push. They've lost a big opportunity in the final few weeks because they started, 2-2. Then they dropped 2 more. So you drop the 2-4 and you go, all right, you pretty much have to win out at this point. They lost 1 game in that mix, so they're only going to play 9 games in total, and they've only won once in the last 3 weeks. So once in the last 4 weeks. So it's been a bit of a struggle here at the end of the season. I'd like to see them get this win against North Baltimore on Friday. We'll be talking about that game coming up in the next 2 days. But I think it's a game Wyndham can win, should win, and hopefully we see them in the postseason. Valley Christian, our next team to talk about. It's taken a while to get us here, much to my heart's content. I've been wanting to talk about in the last 2 days, but I had to follow the schedule. So we get down to Valley Christian. And how about this one? Going on the road, 3rd straight road game, by the way, after going into the Wigwam, taking down Southern 15-6. The offense struggles again for Valley Christian, and I think this is becoming a trend, and I think the trend is solely related to the weather, because you look at their ability to throw the football. Jordan Peete was 4 of 18. He's not the most accurate quarterback, and part of that is they like to throw deep balls, and it's very hard to complete those. And you're not going to have more than 50% completion. But going 4 of 18 is very out of the ordinary. That's 22% for Jordan Peete. And that is not his normal numbers to put up in that game, in a game like this. So you have to give a lot of credit, one, to Wellsville for having a great game, led by Greathouse. I mean, 42 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground, 57 passing yards, and a touchdown through the air to Watkins, who also pulled in 57 receiving yards. Plus, the defense got an interception. They blocked the kick. They got some great kickoff returns from both Greathouse and Watkins. Watkins took 150 yards. So, I mean, you do have to give some credit to Wellsville here, but this was definitely an off game for the Valley Christian offense, and I think a big part of that continues to be how the weather. We're seeing it play a factor in every team across the region at the moment. I haven't seen one team really look like their regular selves as we've gotten colder weathers. And as I saw versus Southern, the ability to throw the football for this Valley Christian team definitely dips when that weather gets cold. Saw a little bit last year when they played Cuyahoga Heights in the postseason. This time around, I mean, if Valley Christian is going to be the legitimate team they want to be and make the run that they want to make and potentially take on Kirtland in a regional championship to make their way down to camp, they're going to have to learn how to throw the football when it gets cold, because you cannot go in against really anybody. They go into Cuyahoga Heights again, which Valley would have a home field advantage, at least at the moment, if it was in the first 2 rounds, which it probably wouldn't be. But Valley would have home field advantage. Are you going to go up against a team like Cuyahoga Heights or Brookfield? Brookfield's right behind them. Kent Central Catholic, Rootstown. Are you going to go into one of them without the ability to throw the football? I'm not even talking about the top 3 teams. I'm talking about the 4 teams that sit behind Valley Christian. If they have offensive performances like this through the air, their ground game was good. Jashawn Lindsay, 121 yards for him on 16 carries. Jontrell Mixon, they finally get him reintroduced to the ground game. He ran 11 times, 77 yards. He pulled in 2 touchdowns on the ground. Phillips Brownlee got a receiving touchdown. They pull in 5 tackles for loss in total. Amir Dixon grabs a fumble in this game. I mean, it was a good game from every other department other than passing the football. But the ability to pass the football for Valley Christian has been and probably will continue to be their greatest weapon. As great as Jashawn Lindsay is on the ground and as powerful as Jontrell Mixon in, if you can't find a way to get this ball down to the likes of number 13 of Vashawn Gurley, you will not win in the postseason. He is the X factor of this team. Jashawn Lindsay is the workhorse. He is going to take this ball as many times as you will give it to him, and he is going to get you consistent yards. He's going to get you almost 10 yards a carry. That is what he's going to do. But when you need the biggest plays and you need the big-time moments, number 13 is the direction to go. He is and has been for the last at least 2 years that I've seen them, the ultimate X factor. If Vashawn Gurley's involved in the game in a big way, they win. If he's not and he goes quiet, last season and now a little bit this year, that's when they've had their slowest games. Southern stopped them. Southern held them pretty quiet for most of last week because there was a struggle to throw the football. Jordan Peete, 20% passing last week. Johnny, 20% passing this week. Vashawn Gurley had 1 touchdown in that game. It was 41 yards, and it won Valley Christian the football game. Just about. That was their first touchdown of the game. He is the X factor. He is the momentum. He is the spark of this Valley Christian team. And as much as, you want to say, what about Jontrell or every other weapon they have on this team, they all play their best when Vashawn Gurley gets his. And that's just the way it goes because he is such a vocal leader of this team that he needs that confidence behind him as well. He has the confidence. He needs the stats to back it up, to get that team to buy in behind him sometimes. And I think this was another example. They struggled a little bit. He got involved, 4 receptions, 65 yards, but he didn't get that touchdown. And it comes out close. Valley, for one of the few times this season, struggled on 3rd and 4th down. Penalties ate them up. Total yardage, I mean, their yards were fine. They had 350 yards as a team, and they held Wellsville to 57 passing and 73 rushing. They held Wellsville to 20% on third down. They allowed Wellsville to get just 6 first downs in the entire game. Valley got 17 because they were running the football. The more I see Valley Christian having numbers of 17 first downs in the game, the worse I think they did. Because when I've seen them at their best, it's big play, explosive ability. That is honestly when they are at their best. And, it's not a knock at this team. They're a very good team. But I truthfully believe they're going to go in and beat the likes of Brookfield, Mogador, Rootstown, Dalton, and Cuyahoga Heights. If they're going to go in there and give themselves that shot to go take on Kirtland in a regional championship game, you have to figure out a way to throw the football when it gets cold. I don't know how they're going to do this, but I know if anyone's going to figure it out, it's that coaching staff and it's that team that has worked relentlessly to get to this point of where they are. Great performance by Wellsville to make this thing interesting, to make a game that nobody gave them even a chance. No one went, yeah, I mean, there's an opportunity there. Nobody said that. Nobody was giving Wellsville 10 cents. Wellsville went, hey, should have been watching this game. It was a good one. They were leading late. They led for a good portion of this game. And Valley Christian was able to pull it out. 12-12 and a half. Wellsville was leading 18-12 going into that final stand. Valley got 12 more points. Valley's got to work on that consistency all the way through. They've had it most of the year. They've been able to just put the hammer down and keep pushing. This is one of those games, let off the gas. I think a part of it, they got the win against Southern. Heads got a little big for them. They stopped looking at it. They went, oh, it's Wellsville. That should be an easy win. And I think that they left something on the field in that game. They didn't play all out like they normally do. And what's scary about that is they still win a football game when they play bad. And now they go back home against East Palestine. I'm gonna ask Andy Hake about that game. What happened? Why did this happen the way it did? And I have a feeling if my theory is right and they were looking ahead to the postseason already, East Palestine in Week 10 is going to be a massacre. If Valley Christian goes out there, fixes their mistakes, and decides, hey, we can't have a repeat of Wellsville. We have to put this game away first quarter. They can. They can put it away in the first quarter. We're going to have better weather. Ball's going to be able to fly a little bit easier for Pete. And I think Pistol Pete's going to get it done. It's going to be a ugly game to watch this Saturday, I can assure you. West Branch, they pull off yet another big win, 42-20. They take down Carrollton on the road. And I mean, what more can you ask for West Branch right now? They are clicking on all cylinders. They're playing really good football. And I think you have to look at them and realize, hey, this is the best team right now in Region 13 for Division 4 football. And we thought for a while it was Girard. But now you look at West Branch and you go, what haven't they done? What more could you ask for? They have one loss in the season. It was 4 points to Canfield, a team in a division higher than them, in a 4-point game. And that Canfield team, well, they're at the top of their standings too. They're a top 14. They've dominated everyone else. They won the close games against Alliance. They took the very important win against the 6-2 Carrollton. They take care of business, and they're doing it with an absolute stud at quarterback, with weapons all around. I mean, we read through the numbers just last week, and to kind of recap them, right now Drew DeShields 23rd in the nation in total yards. He's at 3,028, 9th in Ohio in passing yards, 7th in total yards. In Division 4, his receivers, Joey Jackson, Christian Martic, and Anthony Perry, all top 15 in receiving yards. It's a really good group they have right now. And Anthony Perry, 7th in the division right now in punting average, 36.64. Gets that up a little bit more, he's going to be punting at the FBS level, I can assure you that. He's only a sophomore. 2 more years. Punter at my high school, average right around 39 to 40 going into college. He's punting at Duke. He's up for the Ray Guy Award. He's right around that number you want to see for a punter. And sophomore year, 2 more years to grow. West Branch, you got a kid that can get a scholarship with that kind of leg. Let him keep doing it. Don't make the change. You got a kid that can make something of it. Maybe he doesn't want to be a punter, but you got to get your nose in the door somewhere. That's the way I see it, at least. West Branch, though, I mean, they're going to roll. They're going to have a great finish to the season against Salem. This is going to be a fun matchup, but one I expect them to win. Salem is an 8 seed, so obviously, I mean, it's going to be a tough fight. This is not going to be a game that West Branch is going to pull away from like they did against Marlington. It's not going to be a game that they are going to be completely dominant. They should win. I'm expecting a game similar to the last 2 weeks, probably along the same lines as 42-20 as they did against Carrollton. But now they're back home. It's a rivalry. So Salem, they've got themselves a shot. West Branch, they're either going to be a 1 or 2 seed. So you look at who they may face. It's going to be Edgewood, Field, maybe Coventry, Streetsboro, Hubbard. I think they're going to feel pretty good. Whoever they go up against, I like West Branch going into the postseason. I think it's a very competitive region that they're going to play in, especially because it's mainly made up of any 8 teams. I mean, you got Girard in there, Jefferson, Poland, Struthers, Hubbard. I mean, you just look across the board and it's just any 8. And it's going to be a tough road to go through because we saw how competitive that conference was in the regular season. I expect a lot of them to make some noise in the postseason. And West Branch kind of at the head of them all right now, not as an NE8 team, but as that highest-ranked local team with South Range playing in a level up, they almost make for that makeshift top contender out of that conference being in this position that everyone is going to be hunting for come postseason. They're going to get every team's best shot. Western Reserve, they pick up a much-needed win. They shut down Sebring 49-0 in Sebring's final home game, at least for future history. We don't know how long they're going to be without 11-man football as they make the change. But, you know, it's a game Western Reserve needed a win. At this point, they're 3-6. Postseason, I don't believe, is entirely out of the conversation when it comes to Western Reserve. I'm going to just double check on this. I thought I saw that they were still in the mix. Yeah, Western Reserve right now is a 15 seed that controls their own destiny. If they go in the final week and can upset Lowellville in a massive fashion, they're in the postseason. If they lose, well, they can still get a 13 through 16 spot. It's not out of the question, but they're going to need some teams around them to lose. In South Central, Catholic Central, East Canton, Wyndham, Wellsville, Fairport Harbor. A lot of 3-6 teams hunting for these final 4 spots. Western Reserve wants to be one of them. I think they can be. They got some talent there. I saw them against Brookfield. They didn't look like the worst team. I mean, they lost 47-3, but I thought they had some good moments in that game. And yeah, it was a blowout. Brookfield's really good. Played a division higher, too. And they were a top-seeded team over there. It's a game Western wasn't going to win. Obviously, I think they wanted to play a little better early in the year. But this was a week. They come in, they dominate 49-0. Make it quick, make it easy. Don't leave any question marks out there on the field. And for Sebring, it's the end of a long and a hard road for them. They have Springfield this week on the road. Final 11-man football game, potentially in school history, as obviously they will disband the 11-man football squad after this year. Probably don't like them to pull this upset, but hey, one final game, leave it all out on the line. Why not? Maybe they can get it done. Maybe they can shock Springfield and potentially hold them out of the postseason. That'd be one heck of a finish for them. Best of luck to Sebring. Hopefully we see them in the future back with 11-man football. They can rebuild that program. Next up, Edison. Man, they continue to cook. This is what Broncos were hoping for when they pulled in Russell Wilson. A team like Edison just comes out and cooks, baby. They just haven't let off. And you know, you can say, hey, they had an easy strength of schedule, and no one will go against you. No one will be like, what? No, they had a very hard strength of schedule. Their strength of schedule rating is negative 24.8. Division 5, the teams that are around them for state rankings on Max Preps, Tenora, a 6-3 team, is the spot behind them with a 3.5 strength of schedule. Highland, one above them, 7-2. They got a 1.3 strength of schedule. If Edison had a strength of schedule, they would likely be the number one team in Division 5 football. If they had a strength of schedule, they don't. South Range does, Garraway does, Perry does. And those are the three teams ahead of Edison. Now, depending on what happens in this final week, they do still have an opportunity to grab a high seed. They have 1-8 Indian Creek, and they should roll because that is what they do. They go up against inferior talent, and they show out. Good. They should have Harrison Central in the first round, potentially. Shouldn't say they should. They might. And we already saw they beat Harrison Central 49-14. Hard to beat a team twice, but they're going to be coming right back into the same stadium up there or down there in Richmond. Edison's in a good spot. I think they can make a nice little run here. We'll see how far they go. And I think the big thing to think of, or big thing to watch out for, undefeated going into the postseason. First loss comes somewhere. You hope it doesn't come for a while. But with the strength of schedule, with that region that they're playing in being fairly strong, I would say that top four is as good as any, maybe better than any. You're not going to make it out of the region having not played a competitive football game because there's going to come a time. Might be first round, might not be till the fifth round, fourth round, whatever it may be. There's going to come a time when you have to play close football and you have to go out there in the fourth quarter and say, boys, I know we've only played 2 quarters in every football game with our varsity team in, and I know you just played third. I know you're out of breath. I know you got almost nothing left in the tank, but now I'm going to need something else out of you. And to this point in the season, we don't know if they have that extra little bit of gasoline in the tank. When they're running on empty, can they go out there and can they find the reserves? That's the one question mark I think that remains for Richmond this season. If they have to play in a close game, what can they do in the fourth quarter? No one has tested them in the fourth quarter to this point in the season. 9 games in, and they haven't had to go out there and play clutch football. It's going to burn you in the postseason. It does every year to every team that has not played competitively. In part, I think it happened to Valley Christian last year. Valley didn't exactly have the most competitive of schedules. They played good football. Obviously, Southern United and LeBray, all 3 good teams on that schedule, but they weren't in close games last year against those teams. And they ended up going out to Cuyahoga Heights early in the postseason and had not had the opportunity to play in that fourth quarter of football. Were they the better team than Cuyahoga Heights last year? In my opinion, yes. But who had more experience playing in big-time moments last season? I would say that was Heights, and it showed up in that fourth quarter. That's my most recent postseason memory. That's why I bring it up. Brookfield, I think, has been on a similar track the last couple of seasons. Last 2 years we've covered them. They've been great in the regular season, phenomenal in the regular season. Everyone talks, man, that Brookfield team, one of the best around. They've had legendary quarterbacks, legendary wide receivers over there that have made huge impacts for their program. And they dropped out in the first, second round to teams they should not have. Anything can happen. It's the postseason. Upsets will happen. There is no avoiding the upset. What you can do is prepare for one. Prepare for that fourth quarter and go out there and fight. But the only way to prepare is to have that experience, and that's the one concern I have for that team in Richmond. Fourth quarter. Who are you? We don't know. Mohawk, they come away with a win. Much needed one for them. To start in the year 0-2. Picked up 3 of their last 4. They're now a 3-3 team after taking down Freedom. Freedom, not a good football team. They were 2-5 coming in. Kind of expected Mohawk from what we thought they were at the beginning of the year to go in and win that. They ended up doing it. I think this is a true test this weekend for them on Saturday, an away game against Western Beaver, 7-1 football team. That's a game for Mohawk. You have to go in, you have to win. We'll see what they can do. I don't know a ton about them. I have not seen PA football before. I'm interested maybe to check this out because I know they have some talented players over there. I can see they got J. Michael Rona, who obviously I've seen before during, I believe, Summer League, if it's the same person. 58% completion for him on the year, 12 touchdowns. Obviously, they can run the football pretty well. Boston and the List have combined for 700 yards on the season. It's been a good year after, the problems early on. We'll see what they can do to finish it. That's my thoughts there. Cardinal Mooney thought maybe on a 4-game win streak they could ride the high. They beat Warren G. Harding, beat Brush East and Lutheran East. Yeah, those 3 outside of Harding probably games they should have won, and they did. They had 7 points allowed in those 2 games. They lost 17 to Harding, and you go, all right, this Mooney defense, they're figuring things out. So far on the season, nobody has scored more than 30 points against Cardinal Mooney. And if I'm that defensive coordinator, I'm keeping that feather in my hat, and I'm going, that's on you, offense. I put up one of the best defensive teams in the region. My offense didn't show up. That was the case this Saturday. Went up against the Big Red of Steubenville, albeit a really good team. They came in 7-1. Now they're 8-1. They're a top 5 team in Division IV football. Yeah, Mooney didn't really stand a chance. But with that defense that Cardinal Mooney has, I think in any given week, they do have an opportunity to win football games. It's just a matter of which version of the offense are we going to get. Because they've played it close to Cheney. They played it close to Boardman. They played it close to Lindsay. And you talk about those 3 games. Well, all 3 of those teams have phenomenal defenses. And Mooney was right there. And again, defense holds Steubenville 28 points. Offense didn't show up again. There's the problem. Come postseason, it's probably going to put an end to Mooney's year because their defense has played great. I don't expect this defense to have a break. After what we've seen them do against the likes of Cheney's offense, and really even Steubenville here, their offense is going to be great. Pardon me, their defense is going to be great for the postseason. Their offense, well, therein lies the question. Cardinal Mooney and last season of sports, their basketball team and their baseball team each came in with around 500 records to the postseason. Now, I covered both of them in the postseason, and I'd have to say they both played very well. Obviously, Mooney basketball made it, I believe, the deepest run in school history. Went down and played inside of the Sweet 16, believe the Elite 8. Baseball didn't make it quite as far. They got there. They got past sectionals. Cardinal Mooney, football, now coming in 5-5 record, likely after a loss to Ursuline. I don't think they're going to take this Holy War. Ursuline's too good. And the offense, like we said, for Mooney, hasn't really been there. But I think that this Mooney team is good enough. They can make the run, just like their counterparts in basketball and baseball. And girls basketball, too. They made a nice run of their own as well. Not quite as far, but I believe they got to a district championship as well. Been a great year for Mooney sports. Football. Everyone's watching. Cardinal Mooney sits 13th. They lose. Still a chance for a playoff spot. If they win, they guarantee themselves a postseason spot and potentially a home game in the postseason. We'll see how that plays out. That does it, for high school football. Take a quick look over towards high school volleyball playoffs. In Division IV, the Columbiana sectionals, Western Reserve going to take on Windham tomorrow. Windham coming off the 3-2 win over Louisville. A game I think we kind of expected to go that way. Windham had the better record, but it played very close, very competitive match. Like to see it. Springfield, as expected, beat Newton Falls 3-1. That was a 7-19 seed. And Southern was able to take care of business and avoids the upset against Lisbon 3-1. A couple more games going on here tonight in that region. None of them, however, involving any of our teams here on the network. Latonia awaits likely Canton Central Catholic on the 22nd. And we'll see how things play out. Springfield will take on Southern on the 20th. Obviously, as I mentioned, Western Reserve and Windham on the 20th as well. Over in the Lisbon side of Division IV, Sebring will now take on Jackson Milton, who pulled out the win against Columbiana's Heartland Christian in a 5-set match. The number 11 seed will go up against the 12-seeded Sebring. That match will take place at Wellsville's gym tomorrow night. Louisville St. Thomas Aquinas beat Warren JFK in a bit of an upset stunner there, 16-13. However, they will go to take on the number 1 seeded Wellsville after they beat Valley Christian in 3 sets, the 25 seeded Valley Christian out of the postseason. McDonald will take on East Canton tonight at 6 p.m. in McDonald's Gymnasium. Winner of that will take on the Academy for Urban Scholars on the 22nd. East Palestine awaits the winner of Matthews and Dalton's game tonight. If Dalton wins, I believe they will have home court advantage. If Matthews wins, that game should be played for EP. Over in Division III, the Orwell sectionals, Waterloo will now take on the number 2 seeded Crestview of Columbiana after Columbiana beats Beechwood 3 straight sets in last night's game. This game between Waterloo and Crestview will be taking place on the 20th. Tomorrow night in Crestview. Poland comes out with the win over Cardinal Mooney, 12-17 in 3 straight sets. They will take on Lakeview, who won 3 sets over Grand Valley. That should be a pretty good game. I still like Lakeview to come out of it. Poland will give them a shot. So I'm thinking we're going to have a Lakeview, Columbiana, Crestview district semifinal on this side. Champion and Liberty go at it tonight. That game going on at Mineral Ridge's gym. So no home court advantage for that one. Winner takes on Kirtland on the 22nd. Wycliffe awaits the winner of Mineral Ridge in Brookfield's game tonight at 7:30. That game also being played in the Ridge following the Champion Liberty match. Best of luck to all those involved there. In Medina, Division III, Region LeBray will take on South Range tomorrow night as the 8-seeded Levittsburg LeBray will take on South Range after South Range pull a little bit of an upset, taking down the 9 seed in 4 sets. Mentor Lake Catholic will take on Ravenna Southeast. Berkshire awaits the winner of Campbell Memorial and Hanover's United in tonight's matchup. 14 versus 13 seed, but don't be fooled by that 14 of Campbell. They're storming. I got a feeling they might make some noise here in the postseason. Garfield and Rootstown also going at it tonight after the conclusion of the Campbell United game that takes place in Garrettsville. Winner of that will go to take on Willoughby Andrews Osborne, an 18 seed. So likely the winner of this matchup between Rootstown and Garfield has a date with the district semifinals. In the Jefferson Division II sectional districts, Niles will take on the number 1 seeded Girard Indians after Girard takes down number 25 Youngstown Cheney in 3 sets. Girard now takes on Niles McKinley for the sectional championship. Howland took down Harvey in 3 sets, so the 7-seeded Howland will take on the 9-seeded Aurora, who beat West Geauga in 4 sets. Struthers awaits the winner of Ursuline and Edgewood, which is a matchup going on tonight in, I believe, Kenston is where that game will be played. Yeah, 6 o'clock game in Kenston for Ursuline as they take on Edgewood. Marlington will await the winner of Youngstown East versus Chagrin Falls. Kenston playing in their home gym at the finale of the game prior. Into Streetsboro sectional districts for Division II, NDCL takes on Manu Crestwood tonight as Crestwood took down Field. Canfield over Ravenna in 3 straight sets, so the number 8-seeded Canfield Cards will take on the 12-seeded Perry, who beat number 14 Streetsboro. Jefferson awaits the winner of Conneaut in Alliance. That game going on tonight. Geneva awaits the winner of West Branch in Salem. Should be a really good one. That game being played in the West Branch Fieldhouse tonight at 7:30. Also going on here, Parma Heights sectional district. Pepper Pikes Orange, 30th seed, going up against my alma mater in Copley High School. That's the 30-on-7 Copley, likely going to district semifinal unless Orange can pull a monumental upset there. Winner of that game will take on the winner of Beaumont and Holy Name. Cleveland Bard Early College awaits the winner of Padua Franciscan Cleveland Central Catholic. Rocky River Lutheran West awaits the winner of Hathaway Brown and Fairview Park Fairview. Over in the Menor region, YSN schools there in action tonight. Only Austintown Fitch, the 4-seeded Fitch Falcons, going up against the 32nd seeded Cleveland Heights. Should be a wash for them. It's a 7:30 game on schedule for. They will play through after the ending of East Lake North and Euclid. Those are 17 and 26 seeds. Fitch likely to face on Macedonia's Nordonia in the next round of the playoffs on the 22nd. It's a 4:30 game. Will be played after the Hudson matchup. We'll see where that game ends up taking place. I think Fitch likely to host there, though. But either way, it's looking like a good run for Fitch. They should be able to make it down to this district semifinal with relative ease. Best of luck there. And over in the Hudson Sectional District for Division I, Warren G. Harding taking on Massillon Jackson. And Boardman awaits the winner of Ashtabula Lakeside and Canton McKinley. That game going on tonight as well. And that does it. We got a lot of teams in action tonight. It's been an exciting run so far. In boys playoff soccer, Boardman beat Brush last night in the first round. 10-0. Fitch took down Chardon. Louisville beat Glen Oak. And we didn't get any scores from Beaver Local and Riverview or East Liverpool versus Indian Creek. In soccer tonight, though, girls playoffs getting into it. East Liverpool versus Beaver Local. Hubbard taking on Alliance, Jefferson, and Canfield. Columbiana and Poland. Cardinal Mooney versus Southeast. Cornerstone Christian versus Waterloo. Bristol against Lakeview. Crestview against Champion. Steubenville Central Catholic going up against Badger. Pymatuning Valley against Springfield United against Grand Valley. Niles against Streetsboro. West Branch against Struthers. And a big one, Salem versus Ursuline. It's girls playoff soccer going on tonight. Just as a check here, we do not have any live games on the schedule for tonight, so you will only be able to catch the scores of those as they come into us here in Your Sports Network on our new scoreboard tab on the website. But with that being said, let's head down into the finale of our Wednesday show. As always, the college football top 10 as voted on by myself, Alec Cabrera, Matt Morrison, and Mike Wolfgang. Let's get this started at the backside of it. Number 10, the Oregon Ducks. They cruise into this 10 spot after not being ranked in last week's polls. They just edge in after they have put together a strong, I'd say, 2022 campaign. Obviously, the only loss coming in week 1, 49-3 against Georgia, a team that I am not fully bought back into. They did not make it inside of my top 10. They were just on the outside, but both Matt and Mike put them in at the number 2 seed. I would have preferred to see Oklahoma State. They played it close against top 10 teams in the nation. Obviously, they took a loss this week to TCU, but in my opinion, they have better wins in Baylor and Texas Tech. But Oregon ultimately grabs this 10th spot in the playoff polls. At number 9, the Ole Miss Rebels. They've continued to have a strong season, taking down Kentucky on October 1st. They had the Auburn Tigers come to town this time around. They win by double digits after beating Vandy by almost the 28 points the week before. It's been a strong campaign for them. Obviously, a pretty good team. I don't think they're as good as they were a year ago with Matt Corral, but I still think that they can make some noise here this season. Personally, I had them sitting as an 8 seed, as does Matt Morrison. Mike Wolfgang, though, has them sitting at 9, so I think we're all kind of at the opinion they're good, but maybe not on the level of some of our other undefeateds. Speaking of an undefeated who's been absolutely carrying a massive load this year, the Horned Frogs of TCU. Even though it's not a horned frog, it's a lizard that they call a frog because Texas. But TCU, I mean, they're playing really good football, and in my opinion, I really would like to see them higher. Unfortunately, the one thing going against them is the teams they have beat are falling off. Oklahoma, for instance, it's kind of one of those teams you look at and you go, all right, that's a win. That's a good win. No, Oklahoma's a 4-3 football team, and that's a game TCU has to look at and you go, all right, so we go up against the powerhouse. We dominate them at home, and then they completely fall off. And I think you have to look at that and you go, come on, we had the game. The next week, you go into Kansas, undefeated. College game day is there for the first time for football. And you beat them in a one-score game and you go, woohoo, we beat Kansas. Well, Kansas lost that game. Well, they just lost again this week. Then TCU, they go into Oklahoma State and they go, all right, another good team. Obviously, they win this game. It's a tight margin for them. Can you imagine Oklahoma State goes out next week and they lose? TCU's strength of schedule has just been taking a nosedive because they're playing good teams. But then those teams have instantaneous fall-offs after TCU beats them. TCU has Kansas State this week. They have another opportunity to continue this push at being recognized as a top team in the country. I personally think they are. They've given me every inclination they can win in the fourth quarter. They passed the eye test. They can win big. They have Kansas State, West Virginia, Texas Tech, Texas, Baylor, and Iowa State. The road is not easy for the TCU Horned Frogs. We'll see what these boys can do. I personally like them. I have them ranked at 5th in my poll, and that gave them a little bit of a push here. Mike had them at 7, Matt had them at 9. But I think this is a team, when you really look at last 4 weeks and you put in those ranked wins, they got a lot of points going their way in my book. And I'm sure they also want to see that SMU win look a little bit better, because SMU is 3-3 at this point. But you go back last year, and which is kind of how you looked at it, was week 3 of the season. SMU came in, you're like, all right, they're 2-2, not playing too bad. Let's see what they can do. Their only losses at that point, or pardon me, they were 2-1 coming to that game. Their only loss was to Maryland by a touchdown. And since then, I mean, they've lost again. So every opponent TCU plays goes out and loses the next week. See if Oklahoma State keeps that run up. I got a strong feeling they will. I hope not. I like Oklahoma State. I don't think they're a bad team. I had them at 10 in my own personal poll, mainly because they have that ability to play teams close. I want to see them pull out a few wins if they beat. I mean, they got a nice schedule of their own. They got Texas, who's ranked, Kansas State, ranked, Kansas, 2-loss team, and Iowa State over the next couple of weeks. And they finish in Oklahoma and then versus West Virginia. I think it's a good little run here that Oklahoma State can go on. Potentially we'll see them head back up near that top 5. That's where I'd like to see them personally. Coming next, though, following the biggest upset of the season so far, the Alabama Crimson Tide fall to 7th in this week's Casual Sports Podcast polls. Now, they fell in at 4th a week ago, so a bit of a slide from one week to the next. This is a spot, they played decent football. But to me, and obviously not everyone else is here to make their case, but to me, this is an Alabama team playing far below what I think we all know they're capable of. And again, for me, this is an Alabama team that I look at and I go, something's missing. And I know part of it, they haven't had a completely healthy Bryce Young. That's going to impact this. He was not 100% in this game. He still played well. 455 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jahmyr Gibbs did his thing on the ground, 100 yards, 3 touchdowns. But you just went up against a team that was hitting at the right time. And I think this is a game like this, I think, goes to show that when you see a top team in the nation, statistically in a category, you can kind of throw out that strength of schedule. At this point in the season, Tennessee had not played a still ranked opponent. Pitt was ranked when they faced him. Florida was ranked when they faced him. LSU was ranked when they faced him. None of them are ranked anymore, and that's how I look at it. Have you played a team that is ranked currently? 1, and it's Alabama. That's a good one. That's a real good one to pull. And again, for Alabama, who have they beaten? 1 ranked win, and it's over Texas. Yeah, they beat Texas A&M, who had their backup quarterback. Yeah, they had theirs as well. So I think you kind of just crossed that game out. Didn't really happen. If they want to pull the guard, hey, we had our backup quarterback, so did they. Game's a wash. Result sticks on the record, but you don't look at it. They do. They beat a struggling Arkansas. They slaughtered Vanderbilt, who's Vanderbilt. They beat Utah State, L.A. Monroe, and a 1-point game against Texas. So their only competitive games, they have lost. They have lost the only 2 games on their schedule that are worth anything. Arkansas in conference play is 1-3. That game does not matter. That game, take it with a singular grain of sand. Nothing there. The only games on Alabama's schedule that have mattered, they have been in a 1-point game and a win against Texas and a 3-point loss to Tennessee. They have Mississippi State coming up. They have Ole Miss, LSU. We'll see what they do. I think they will still likely be in the hunt till the very last week of the college football playoff, and they probably have a good shot to make it in. But at this point, there are no definites. They have to go in and beat Ole Miss on the road on November 12th. We'll see if they get it done. I'm not 100% sold on the Crimson Tide at this point. I've had my doubts the last few weeks. I have not been giving them super rankings. I had them at 5 in my polls last week. I dropped them to 9. In the last 3 weeks, I had them go from 3 to 2 to 5 to 9. I have lost some faith these last 2 weeks because they've hit adversity and they could not go through it. And that is not the Nick Saban we know. That is not the Alabama we know. And I'm concerned by it. At number 6 in our polls, the UCLA Bruins, who are brewing something out on the West Coast before their departure out of the Pac-12 in a couple of seasons as they take down Cam Rising's Utah. Just the other week, they were in a bye, but obviously that Utah win's looking pretty good for UCLA at the moment as the Utes just took down USC and dropped them out of our top 10s. And you look at that win now for UCLA, it looks really good for them. While they do have some struggles along the year, Washington, South Alabama game is still a head scratcher. Yeah, South Alabama, they're not all that bad. They're 5-1. So that's a game UCLA should have won by a mile. It was a 1-point game. Not just that. It was a 1-point game that UCLA had to come back from. They scored 9 points in the fourth quarter to win that game. They were trailing in that game. That's the one side of UCLA that you have that question mark with. But to me, it's strength of schedule. And I like it these last 2 weeks, especially the way I looked at it. Recency. What have you done? They have Oregon coming off the bye this weekend. I think it's a good test for them. We'll see what they're made of. I like DTR. I've been on the DTR train a couple of years. Charbonnet is one heck of a running back. Michigan's a fool for letting that guy out of there. Obviously, they got some pretty good guys of their own, so maybe they're not. I just like calling them a fool. But I think this UCLA team, they got something going over here. And I think that they are heading in the right direction. And at the looks of things, UCLA, I think now has to be viewed as the favorite to win the Pac-12 this season. They have the win over Utah. Only undefeated team in conference. Have a top 25 win. And USC now on November 19th in the Rose Bowl Stadium, not bowl game, looks very heavy on the favor of those boys in blue. Number 5, talking about another team in blue, the Wolverines of Michigan, coming off a very impressive win over Penn State, who absolutely tanked in the polls, in the AP polls, I should say, at that after last week's loss. I thought Penn State was the better team going into it. Boy, was I proved wrong. Penn State could not figure out what the football was and how to put it into the air. As combined quarterback, they were 12 of 29 between Sean Clifford and Drew Aller, who combined for 157 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. And once again, James Franklin goes into a big football game and suddenly forgets to run the football. It's a theme we saw a lot of last year. But so far this year, you looked at this team and you went, man, they're a good running football team. That is what they do. That is who they are. And in the biggest game of the season, they went, nah, we don't want to run the football anymore. Let's try and throw it. So they throw 29 times. So Sean Clifford can't get it done. He goes out. They bring in the young gun, the rookie, Drew Aller. 50% completion, but he doesn't average more than 10 yards per reception. That's definitely not what you want. And it's not like their defense played that bad against the pass. I mean, they allowed 17 for 24. That is what it is. But it only hit for 145 yards and an interception. No touchdowns resulted against Penn State's pass defense. Where it broke down and where we kind of expected it to break down when you go up against a team like Michigan is on the ground. Now, Michigan decided, hey, you don't want to run the football? Fine. We'll take all of the carries you should have given to your running backs, and we'll just go ahead and pile them up between Donovan Edwards and Blake Corum, who finished this game with 44 combined carries for, 240 rushing yards between the two of them. As a team, they finished with 418 rushing yards as J.J. McCarthy decided to go for 57. C.J. Stokes came in and went, I'll just carry the train as well. He got 22. Donovan Edwards finishes 173 yards on just 16 carries, 2 touchdowns for him. Blake Corum has 166 yards and 2 touchdowns. And once again, you look at Michigan and you go, well, what more could you ask for? The one game for me that I wanted to see more out of was against Maryland. But again, I like Maryland this season. I think that they were a good team coming into it. I thought they had some potential. And currently they sit at 5-2. Yeah, 2-2 in conference play. They got taken down by the likes of Purdue and Michigan. But you look at their schedule coming up. They took care of business against Indiana. They had Northwestern and Wisconsin the next 2 weeks. I like them in that. We'll see how they fare. But Michigan, a team that outside of the eye test, if I was going off of numbers alone, and numbers alone I mean ranked wins, because that I think is a very important metric to look at this point in the season. Who have you beat and what are they ranked? Records at this point can still be deceiving. But I would say for the most part, AP Poll's not doing too bad at judging who's a good 25 teams. Michigan has one. If I was to put them in any spot, I'd have them about 5. I would have them higher than Ohio State based off of schedule alone. The eye test, I'm not sold on. We've seen them win one-dimensional football. Make it two-dimensional, and then I'll put you above my Buckeyes. Because we know Ohio State can win it on all levels. We don't know if they can do it against the best of the best. We'll find out. They got Iowa's defense, who's third in the nation. Penn State, who obviously will be a good test considering they just took on Michigan. We'll see how that plays out. Wolverines not looking too bad, but I still like my Buckeyes. At number 4, Clemson Tigers. They do take a slide from last week. Only, I think, really because they struggled against the Seminoles, who were 4-2 coming into this game. Ended up being a one-score game, and it was one. Numbers weren't bad, but their defense showed a lot of problems. And I think this is, a couple of the growing pains you're going to get with Clemson this season, maybe in the next year with no Brent Venables there anymore, anchoring that defense as the defensive coordinator. They showed a couple of times, big games especially, that they have no ability to stop their opponent. Wake Forest put up 45, NC State got 20, now Florida State gets 28. Syracuse, I like for the upset next week, I ain't going to lie, because Clemson has no defense to show of. That's my thought on Clemson. I still have them as the number 2 team in the nation. And no, I don't have Ohio State as number 1. At number 3, Georgia, the Bulldogs. Personally, I have them sitting at 7th. But Mike has them at number 1. Matt has them at number 2. So apparently I got outvoted in this one. But I look at their strength of schedule and I go, cool, you beat Oregon in week 1. What have you done since then? Absolutely nothing. Sing it again. I don't know. I look at Georgia. They do not pass the eye test. Stetson Bennett had a phenomenal start to the season. And this, again, a good game against a nobody. But you saw his numbers against Auburn. Didn't throw a touchdown. Against Missouri. Didn't throw a touchdown. Against Kent State. Didn't throw a touchdown. Dude has 2 touchdowns in the last 4 weeks of football. He only had 2 against South Carolina. Against Samford, he had 1. Everything good about this team was left in week 1. They got Tennessee coming up in a few weeks. Tennessee is going to take that game. Tennessee keeps playing like this. They're going to take that game. I do not like. I know all the people on College Game that will go, oh, well, this Georgia team might be better than last year. They all need glasses. This Georgia team is a shell of what they have been in recent years. Shell. And they're riding high on the fact that Oregon didn't collapse after that game. Because Oregon, after that game, they took on Eastern Washington, who's not good. BYU, who's been below average, below their average especially, was in a close game against Washington State, played mediocre against Stanford, and played mediocre against Arizona. We'll see if Oregon's a real deal or not as they take on UCLA this weekend. But Georgia's strength of schedule is riding off the fact that Oregon has played nobody since that game. And they've struggled against nobody. Nobody teams, I should say. They struggled against them. I think Georgia might be a bit of a pretender this year. At number 2, though, the Vols. Personally, I had them at number 1 in the nation. Look at this. Look at who they just beat. Bama. They took them down. And honestly, I thought through 4 quarters of football, they were the better team. I watched this game. I kept an eye on it the entire time. And every time I saw one of these teams need something, it was the Volunteers that got it done. And normally, you go to those 4th quarters and close games, and Bama's always the one that gets it done. But the Volunteers were this time. And I think that's the big difference between these two teams this year, especially with Alabama. I talked about it. They are not the same closer team that they have been. Tennessee took over that mark of, hey, we can close. They've had to close in overtime against Pitt, had to close against Florida. Now they had to close against Alabama. In all three instances, they got it done. They got Kentucky and Georgia coming up after what will basically be a bye week against Tennessee Martin this week. Well, the Skyhawks are 4-2. I'll give them a little bit. I'll give them a smidge of credit. But I like Tennessee. They're looking good. But the number one team in the nation, the only team in the nation that has not lost a game, that has not been in a game in which the final score was within 10 points to one another. The number one team in the offense, the number one offense in the nation, the number 10 defense in the nation. And guess what? The team that is getting back the number one wide receiver in America this week, the Ohio State Buckeyes, coming in at number one. Back-to-back weeks, they reign at the top of the polls, and back-to-back weeks, I have not put them there. In fact, I dropped them in my polls this week thanks to Tennessee's win. So no one can come in here and tell me that I'm biased towards the Buckeyes. The only reason I have them as high as 3 is the eye test. And it continues to be that fact that they have not had a single game within 10 points this season. And I know you can go, oh, they haven't played anybody. And you would be correct. However, I will say this. They are managing the number one offense in the nation at 49 points a game, which, by the way, their scoring average alone is the over-under for this weekend against Iowa, the number 3 defense in the nation. But you look at defenses that they've played. Notre Dame, well, they still rank in the top 30, I believe, for defenses. Toledo, mid-60s. Michigan State, mid-60s. Wisconsin, top 50. Well, they have played defenses in just about every week that rank inside the top 50% of college football. And yet they manage the number one offense in the nation. I think the one question is this defense legit? We won't know until they take on Michigan, in my opinion. We will not know if this defense is truly the defense we think they are or if they are pretenders. I don't think Penn State has an offense that will truly challenge them. We know Iowa has no defense. In fact, they have the 3rd worst offense in the entire nation. Let that sink in. They're ranked 127th, or tied for 127th, out of 131 teams in the country. Yeah. Northwestern has no offense. Indiana and Maryland. Maryland I like. I don't think they have a super offense that's going to test the Buckeyes. Michigan is going to be the only defense this year that is going to test what Ohio State truly is. We'll see what that happens, what that looks like. Oh, I'm excited. Thanksgiving weekend should be a fun one. It's going to be something. I'm ready for it, but that is our top 10 polls. You can check out the full list on our Twitter page at Casual Sports Report, as it just leaves right there. Don't worry, it'll come back around. But that does it for our Wednesday edition of the Casual Sports Podcast. Mike Wolfgang rejoins us for the high school football extravaganza day 1 tomorrow on the Casual Sports Podcast on your sports network. Power Hour coming up next.